Recording. I'm sharing my screen. So where we are yesterday. So we started reading the values from outside of our code. So outside of Talend. So we never going to use any values. We are going to keep anything studio level or a code level. So studio level in the sense code level. So if you have in a code level, you are going to run right generally. But we want to keep like outside of your code so that whenever you want to change anything, you no need to touch your Talend code or no need to open your Talend Studio. You can go and change in the whatever values you want to change for that variable, because the component level you are not going to change anything. So component is going to be the same, just the values, like whatever you are establishing connection, or you are referring some path, or you are assigning some value to instead of existing value something. So you can able to manage through context variables. So context variable purpose is without touching your code, you can change the values, you can vary the values, and you can pass to the code, and you can run your code any environment, any place from your outside of Talent Studio. So without Talent Studio, even somebody share the job, you don't need a Talent Studio. You can run that job because it's a Java. Just Java is installed, and you have that required context variables and all. You no need to open the studio, or you no need to open the Talent job design anything. You can just pass the context parameter wherever you are. It is going to stored, and you can run the job. That is the intention of context concept and contextualization we are following, and it is very comfortable. So you no need to open, even they don't know Talend also, you can simply ask them to what is the value you want to change. In production generally you don't have access to edit, or you cannot keep on whatever you want to deploy, but you can ask the context related changes and all, what whoever is going to be have that access of admin. So generally our jobs are going to run in a production, like a production is going to be Linux only, they'll follow, they'll use. So you can ask them to edit the context value by mistake, anything you want to change, or wantedly you want to change something for specific to production, you can simply change in the context file. No need to open the job, or no need to redeploy the job. To avoid such kind of issues, they are given that common configuration file. So in general people will call parameter file or context file or source of context. So they can call n number of ways. In general you can remember context parameter file or param file, which is used by the project level Talend jobs, whatever variables, whatever we are going to define in your job, all those variables we are going to keep in a outside of our code, outside of our studio. It is going to be a file or table. So right now we are seeing the file. So I have created so in our scenario we are having a file path which is going to load data into the table. The file path I want to read from the file path value. So I have removed that file path whatever I have defined studio level. So you don't see any value is passed. The path of the file is not passed in the studio level. So there is no value. If you run this job, it will say cannot find the path, because there is no path, right? From where this file has to pick and where it has to check the file exists or not. So the value is not available within the code. So within the code or within the context variable, whatever you can feel, studio level, we don't have that value. We want to get that value from the outside of the studio, outside of our code. So for that purpose we created a 3 files. So we are going to have 3 or 4 files based on the environments. We are going to keep that many files in a real time. You will have a 4 generally. So you are going to see. So I have created a context folder, and you see that 4 environments. You can see dev context, prod context, sit context, like that I am going to maintain. So each and every context file have that specific environment related path in that variable and related value. So why we are giving key value, we started yesterday. So why we are giving key and value, this is a like a column value whatever, but why specific to we are giving key and value, right? Talent has a component which is going to read and load and keep in the that values in within the job. It will keep hold of the job till job completes. There is a context load component. So context load component, if you open and see the edit schema, it has that key value. You cannot edit, you cannot add anything. So this is specifically this component is designed for to store the values whatever you are reading from outside of the code, like you are going to read from the table or read from the file. The values are going to store in the component. It's internally it will store the values until it will pass and till end of your job, wherever you are using whatever variables you are defined, whatever variables you are assigned in the job, the variables related values, it will store and keep in this component. It will keep in the memory and it will pass to that whenever it is required, whenever wherever you call that variable. For that purpose they designed a context load component. So this component will read the data from the file or a table and it will keep in his hands. So in the then it will pass the values to wherever you call that variable. So how we have to do this? So you have this component. So this is always going to be your first process. So why? Because you are going to do any process, any load or any read or anything, the required things will be stored in a context file. So you are going to have a db connection details also in file. For right now I just use the file path. So I want to run this process. I need that prerequisite of values, the variables and related values should be loaded into the job. To load that thing we have to use the t context load component. And to get that values, what is the component you have to call? This is a delimiter file. So delimiter with a comma separated. So delimiter is comma. So what is the component we are going to use to read the data from the context, like any file? So we have to use the, if it is a delimiter, then you have to use the t file input delimiter. So this the component generally we use, right? Any data read from the delimiter file. Same way for context variables also, we want to read from delimiter. We are followed the delimiter file and you can store in Excel or you can store CSV wherever you want to store. In general, we are going to have like kind of text file in general. You want to store in Excel, you want to read and you can store into the context load. It just you can use the txl t input excel file and you can read that values and you can store. But the schema is going to be the key and value pair. So just you have to pass the, you can copy from t context load component schema, the same schema we have provided in our context file also. Just copy this and you can have in that same in the input file. So where is this file? So I don't want to hard code this. So what I have to do? I am going to create a one more variable called context file. So context file, I am going to pass a runtime. Okay, this is a variable I am going to pass every time whenever whenever I am calling this job, when I am going to run this job, I have to pass this value through runtime. So because different environments, right? So different environments means different files we are going to maintain. So I'm just calling context file, context dot context file. And what is the delimiter we have provided? Comma. And we have a header. So key value is our header. So you can ignore that first record and skip empty rows. We can leave it as it is. We don't have anything. Okay. So just we have tried to read that context file whatever we have and we want to load into the context load component before starting our job. So we have to get that value into our code. So we have to connect the main. So you want to pass the data from one component to other component, we are going to use a main. The only connection is main. So and this is a pre job. So every job before we want to load that details. So without that you cannot start your job, right? So you can connect to that pre job. After that you can establish a connection related components or any other component checks you want to do, you can perform. So I'm just going to use on component okay on this. So once the context file, whatever values are defined is loaded, then I'll start checking the connections and all, and then as usual our main flow will get started, and it will find that if the it find that path of the file, and then it will look into that, and it will check the file exist, then it will go to the file load. If not, then it will go to the kill the job. So just I'm going to run this. So we want that to runtime, so context file, because we are having different environments. So I'm just going to check this. So every time I'm going to run, it will ask the where is that context file. So it is going to ask me. So first I want to run for dev. So I'll pass this path. So Talend expects the what happened. So it should expect the uh, path like this. So I just change that forward slash. So I'm going to run this. So I haven't selected any environment here. I just have default, but I am trying to load the data to the dev environment. That means dev file I am trying to read. So whatever I have defined here, right? A dev path related file. So this is related to dev path data. I just want to load into the schema is TRN 2025, whatever schema we have. So I'm just trying to read and load the data into that schema. So it will drop and create the staging table again. So we are not selected any environment, but what we are loading dev data. How do we know? We based on the context file. So based on the context file. So what context file? Here database details we don't have. So right now whatever we have in a default, so that should be the schema for it, and it is going to connect with that specific database, whatever we have defined the default. But what file you are loading? Dev related data file you are loading. So it is loaded one variable. So we have one file, right? One parameter we have that is loaded. You want to see what is it is loaded. There is another component. You can just check what it is loaded. So there is a one another component called context dump. So it will at a time it will load all the variables from the outside of that file or table, and it will show it will load and store here, right? So after completed this process, you can use the context dump. Context dump is going to print all the whatever values are read by the context load component. So you can use a log row, and you can just print what variables are read from the file. We can check that is read it from the file, but we can see here one row is passed because we have only one key and value. So that is what it is saying, one row. But still we want to confirm it is loaded from the file or not. So context load and the context dump. We are seeing two new components. So this is mainly purpose of load the variables and related values into the job. So every job, this is going to be common job. In general real time, you will have a joblet concept. I cannot show in open studio there is a joblet. Generally people what they'll do, they'll keep this as a common joblet. So the joblet means it's a reusable component. So you can just drag and drop that this flow every job. This is the flow is going to be the common, because we need that variable and values to be loaded before running our job. So this part, so from these three components, right, generally people will have a joblet. So it is a joblet is a reusable component. So before creating any job flow, you will have this pre-job which is going to read the context variables from the outside of your code. And this is just I am explaining for to display what is loaded here and what is it is printing. So this is not going to be a part of your process anytime, because it's just a printing process to know what are the values read and what it is printing. To check that purpose, I am adding this. I'm going to add one more variable here to make sure it is read from the dev. So to just to make sure this is read from this file, because if it is loaded, if you are running for dev environment, it should print the environment as a dev. If you are running for UAT, then it will print the UAT. So to show that value, I am just added one more variable in all the files. So now I am going to, for this component also, you can see that key value only. So whatever is loaded by the context component, what this component will do, whatever you are provided the file or db or whatever it has, it should be having key and value pair in a schema, so that it can load that values. Key as a variable, value is what is the value of the variable. So those two columns are going to be read from the your input component. It's any component. You can use you can maintain a table to store this key and values, like variables and values, or you can maintain a file to store this key and value, and it can be loaded into the context load. So context load will keep that variables and values, and it will maintain till your job ends, and wherever you have called that variable, it is going to pass that value. So that is the purpose of we are using a context load component. And context dump is a component which can print whatever is loaded by the context load component. Just it will dump, and you want to write into the some other location. You want to store that whatever is loaded by the context load component. You want to create another table to store that values. You can use the output component, or you want to store into the another file. You can store into the other file, or you just want to print on log row. You can use the log row and print that. So this is just going to dump whatever values are loaded by the context load component. And you want to write onto the some other location, you can use this component, and it has a main. So whenever you see the main flow is available, that means you can able to pass this data to the other component. So you want to store, or you want to just to print for the log row, you can use this dump component. So context dump will read all the data whatever loaded by the context load component. Here you no need to do any configurations, just you can use this component. It will automatically dump means it's going to copy. So just it will copy whatever loaded by the context load component, and it will try to pass to the next component. So for in this case, I'm just using log row to print. If required, you want to copy the same. So for example, I created one file, I want to create multiple files, right? So in general, I have manually did it. So you want to make it through component, you can use a file output delimiter, and you can create a three components which you have created one file, right? You can create a other three files. You can use this flow and you can create that files. Okay, so I'm going to run this again to see what context dump is going to display on the console. Now you can see, right? It is connected to the database and it is printing the dev. So where you have this variable, so where you have this variable, you have this variable in your file. So it is read from the file and it is printed, and you can see, right, what are all context you have used in your job. So all the context it is printing because you have used a dump. So you have used a dump, right? So whatever all, so here you can see, right, it read from two, and other context variables also you have in a studio level. So those are also it is able to read and it is printing. So dump is going to copy whatever you have created all the variables, and it is going to print on print. So you want to print or you want to write onto the other file, you can write it. So I want to, so now I want to write these DB related things and all into the other file to see how the DB connections will come like outside of the file. So I just want to use the TT file output delimited. I'm creating a new context file. Later I'll change it to, because our host name, server name details we need it, right now it is hard coded here. I'm going to remove once it is written to the file. So I'm going to store all these context variables whatever we have related DB and related values onto the file. Instead of manually adding that whatever variables I have in a studio level, I'm just using the T context dump to create a one text file to have the loaded all the variables, whatever we have related DB and all. So it will create that file. So we can copy from paste from that file. I'm using for that purpose. I'm creating this file. So after creating studio all variables, right, you can start creating your generic context files for each and every environment by using this context dump. So context dump will help you to whatever context variables you have created, all the variables and values will be copied and it is try to write wherever you want. So you can create this way. So generic context, I'll open this. You can see, right, it is given all the variables and related. So I'm going to use, instead of manually typing, I'm using this. Don't need this. I want DB connection and other details I want. So let me copy this and I'll paste in dev context. I'm pasting DB related. So directory we don't need, environment two times we have. So I'm deleting this. Password, root. By default it is showing that like a uh, hidden password, but right now we want a password to pass from context file, so I'm passing the value of the file. And what is the dev related schema we are using? Underscore dev. So whenever I run, whenever I pass this context file notation, it should connect database and it should load to the respective schema underscore dev. Okay, this is a file related to dev. We can keep it and this. So now I want to copy this again to the other environment file also. And here what is the change? We have to change the schema. So schema we are treating as a other environment. So I'm copying SIT and here we have to change. We don't need this. We already have. Okay. So I'm storing this and I'll again copy this DB connection into UAT. Change the schema. Set again. I'm going to copy for production. So instead of manually typing this variable and all, I use a context dump to write onto the one file and copied all these variables are same, right? Only the values are going to change. So just you can create one file, one context file in real time also, and after that you can start creating three or four whatever environments you have you can use, but variables are same. Only what you have to change the values. So it is for right now it is a like local host, but you will have a different server name for each and every environment. For prod you will have a different environment, or SIT you will have a different environment. The value you have to replace or you have to change. So all the other variables and related like a schema, everything is going to be the same for all the context files. Now what we are doing, we are passing file path from the file, and the DB related connections also we are maintaining in the context file. So now I am going to delete the context values of database from the our context group. So I'm going to remove all the connection details of database. I'm going to remove this because we want to load from outside of code. So we don't want to keep any values in studio level. So no value you are going to see in studio level. All we are getting from outside. So whatever you want to run, whatever environments you want to run, you can define in your context load so that it will pick up the related context values from that file. So to establish the connection, right? So we need to have that values. So values where we are getting from the file. So file is going to load that DB related. So whatever DB related connection details we are passing from the file. So once the context file is loaded, you are giving on component OK. So wherever you are seeing DB connection server, the value of DB connection server you can find in the file. So it will get load this value as local host here. Instead of the variable, it is going to load the values. So from after the context load is completed. So now I'm going to delete this dump component. So hope you dump component you guys able to follow. I'm deactivating. This is not required in real time. Also, you don't see this dump component using by the people and all. You can see only context load, and context load what it is going to do, whatever you are going to pass, it is a dev environment file or UAT environment file you are passing, that will be loaded all the context variable, and then it will start assigning the values of DB. So DB related all the values we are stored in a file. Each and every environment related file we have stored that values. So whenever this job runs, what it will do, it will load the context load, and then it will start assigning the variables related values from context file. So now you can see there is no value defined in our context file. So you don't see any value. So here you don't see. I'm deleting again to make sure we don't have any value. So now I'm again adding connection. So is there any value you are seeing? Any host name or username, password? Nothing, right? So all these we are expecting to get from the outside of the code. So now I'm going to run this. If you make a mistake in your context file, then the connection will not establish. So we'll see that scenario next. So I'm running this job and I am trying to load this data into uh, SIT. So SIT I want to load. So I'm going to use the SIT file. So this is our SIT file. What is the difference between these two? Just you have to change the okay. So now I'm running this for SIT environment. So I'm passing the SIT related context. So SIT related context, what we have? So we have a SIT related schema, which is going to load the data. So now I'm going to pass this. See, 8 variables are loaded and it is established a connection. And you can see that the flow is started successfully. Now I'm going to make a mistake in SIT. So by mistake, typo, we have passed this. So what is going to happen? So host name you have provided, the instance name you have provided wrong. So context load, it will dump the all values, whatever it is. But when coming to here, job is going to fail because the server name is wrong. So server name, it is going to replace with local host, but it is value you are missed the, yeah, the spelling mistake is there in that file. So it will not establish a connection because the server name is wrong. See, this is how you are going to get that error. So it is not able to find the local host. So local host, right? So we have provided local host something. So it is not able to establish a connection. So your job is failed. Simply your job is failed. It is not going even main flow also because it's not able to establish a connection. So now I'm going to correct this. Save this. And now you want to run for UAT. So I'm going to drop this, what table it is creating. I'll drop this table and we'll see it is creating in all the environments or not. So first one I'm dropping here. So it is dropped. You see no table here. Okay. I'm dropping for SIT also, prod also. Every environment I'm dropping because we want to make sure the table is created through our job and it read from the context file. So I'm dropped it for prod and I'm going to drop for SIT. So there is no table. I don't see table in all four environments or four schemas. We don't have any table. So whenever we run for a specific environment, we are expecting our job pickup from the context file related schema and we are trying to create that table. So now I'm going to run for this first one for dev. So here default only I'm selecting. So default, you don't see that schema name, or you don't have any, you don't find any hard coded or any value you are going to see in the studio level. All we are reading from the context file. So I'm going to run for dev. So you can select environment, or you can just select the default itself, because there is no value defined any environment. So the environment is completely defined from our context file. So context file is going to define, if it is a sit related, it is going to the sit schema. If it is UAT, it will go to the UAT. If it is a prod, then it will go to the underscore prod. If it is a generic, then it will go to the our existing schema, which is not specific to environment. So now I'm going to run for this dev environment. So dev you are selecting, then what you have to pass, dev related context file. So dev related context file you are going to pass to job. We want to pass that context file runtime, right? So we have to check that box in studio level. Okay, so now I'm going to run this. So I'm going to run for this dev. So where is our dev path? You can check our dev schema. So now it is created. You can see table is created and dev environment. So dev you are loaded. So now I want to run for this SIT. So SIT schema, SIT environment, we don't have this table. Where is SIT? So we don't have SIT any table. So whenever you run, you are going to select the SIT environment, and you are going to pass a related context file for SIT. You can go and see in SIT environment. So table is created. Same way for UAT. So you want to run for UAT. So same code we are trying to run for different environments with context file, using context file. Time I'll do for prod also. Okay, so we are ready with the file path. I'm going to run for this UAT environment. So UAT, we don't have a table and we are connecting to UAT or not. We can just make sure we can see any table here. No, right? We don't have any table. So we are just passing through context file and we are trying to load them to UAT environment. So table is created in UAT. So now we can test final test for production environment. Production also, we don't have that table. Production schema. So this is how we are going to use the environments. Same code we are running in a different instances. So same code you are going to run from different Linux's box or whatever scheduler you are going to use. So you'll just select that respective environment from the context variables. So prod. Okay. This location file does not exist. Don't have this folder. Data. Yeah, we don't have a prod related folder. So I'm going to, I'll copy and paste. I'll change this as a data underscore. See, we easily identified, right? It is not loaded because file not exist or that path itself we don't have. So prod data prod. So now I'm going to run again. So here we see, right? It doesn't find that candidates file in that location. So that's where it is getting failed. So now you can see table is created in prod instance also. Okay, this is how file related you can keep the four environment files and same code you can run by reading the files and you can load into the context load component and you can required things you can perform whatever job flows you are going to do. So hope you guys any doubts on this before going to the DB. Very important guys, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, one question, Krishna.
Hmm.
So we are passing the context file name currently, like from the, I mean, runtime.
Yes.
So is it the same that, but real time it will pick the file automatically, right? Once we start the job, I mean,
Yeah, that
uh,
is also, it depends on scheduler, Sai. So
okay.
scheduler, if you are going to use a TMC or tag, right? So how we are doing, right? here we are selecting environment, right? So based on environment, you have already passed that value. So you can pass that what value for environment level. If you are using outside of a tag, outside of a talent environment schedule, then you have to pass the runtime. So how I am passing, right? Same way you have to pass that context file path to your job. So that means you are going to call a sh file, or if you are going to schedule in a batch, then you are going to call the batch, right? So there you have to pass the context file for each and every job, or what is the environment you are going to run. So
Yeah,
only within a environments, if you are using the talent related scheduler or something, then you just have to select the what environment. That's it. Then it will pick up and load it. But you are going outside the talent schedulers or outside the environment, then you have to pass the runtime. So how I am passing, right? Based on environment. So same way you have to pass. So that command syntax, I'll show you how you are going to pass that to context path of your job, every environment.
yeah,
But
sure.
file name, right, in general, right, this is to make your understanding purpose. I am giving prefix dev in general, right? They'll give a common name for all across all the environments. So they don't define dev, sit, prod like this prefix also. So context dot text is will be there. So it depends the people how they want to follow the naming convention and all. To differ your knowledge, like to understand, make you understand yourself, I'm just giving dev period and all. So generally they'll have a context common file name, so that you'll not, there is no confusion, the syntax going to be the same for runtime. So just context hyphen context param context file equal to context dot text. So it is any environment, but the file is going to placed in a server, it is going to have prod related. So now how we have like a schema, right? If it is a dev file, we have a dev schema. If it is a uat, you will have a uat schema. So like that, inside the file you will have parameter values are changed, but the file name is going to be the common. So your syntax going to have that common name, so that you no need to change for each and every environment. That is how the people is going to maintain in a real time. Hope you are able to follow.
Yes, Krishna, I got my answer.
Okay. So same way, right? So now we are seen from reading from file. So now I'm going to create a table in each and every environment. In real time also, you are going to create a table for each and every environment, and you will maintain your context related things. So I'm going to create. So now I'm going to use a common name, and you can have that key and value. So you can have key. So default, yeah, without primary key also you can keep this, but the variable is going to be one time, right? You cannot use a variable, same variable and multiple values you can do. So I am keeping this as a key column. So key is our key column. So it is also varchar. We are storing the text like a variable name. Okay, this is how you are going to create a table. So this is where it is creating under dev environment. So I am copying this create statement. Okay, so table is created under dev. So dev environment, and same I am going to create a table for all environments, sit. And I am going to create for uat also. Okay, I want to create for prod also. So in this, right, so if you are using DB, the DB connections values are going to be come from outside of so you can they can set up file or something before getting, because you are reading from table. So table, the context values are reading from table means before that itself the connection needs to be established, right? So we are going to leave this file concept as it is. So generally they'll maintain a file or they'll set up a like a Linux related that username password, but you can have a file which is going to have only DB related credentials, no other you are going to see. So these things, right, we are going to keep in database, other file path, other whatever you are going to have variables, right? Those are all going to be there in your context file. So I'm going to add here file path. Okay, the value, whatever we have here, and I'm going to remove this from context file because we don't need. We are going to keep our all context variables in DB except DB connection. So I'm going to apply this, and same I want to use for all other environments. So length is more. So we have to increase the length of context value. So this has more value, right? Okay, so one row affected. So it is not allowing duplicate entry. Okay, so I'm going to change to SIT. So I want a entry for environment for SIT also. And what we have to change here, so the path of the environment here, SIT. Same file we are using, but we are just trying to understand how we are going to use a different environment. So we have a same issue, length issue in SIT also. So I'm going to change all the context tables. So prod is changed to change for SIT. Next, I want to change for UAT. Okay, so okay, so this one same thing I am copying, copy row, and I want to paste in all environments, but only change we have to change this data we have to change. This is for dev. Okay, so now I'm going to change for SIT. So I'm going to enter this, paste the row, enter. Okay, same I'm going to do for UAT. I'm copy pasting that file path and related value, but I'm editing the path of the file. So if the same path is fine, because file is same for our all across all environments, but to make sure we are reading different environment, I'm just adding that. I do for prod also. Okay, so we have a environment variables. Only file path I have added. We can add a number of like this, but now I'm going to the Talend job. So we have created a context tables in different environments, and we want to read the context values from the table. But to read from the table, what we need to have a database connection details and all from the file only, right? So I'm going to keep only database connections details in a file. Other than that, all context variables related we are going to maintain in a table. So without this, you cannot establish a connection to the database, and how we will read the tables. So we need a database connectivity information in file. One file which is going to have only DB connection. Other all variables across the job, whatever you are going to use, right? Those things you will keep in a database tables. So context variables. So this is again in real time also who are going to keep a context variables in tables, whatever tables or what they have different cloud related technologies, but still to connect that cloud environment, that cloud related information, anything you are going to have in the this is not required. This that information you have to keep maintain somewhere, right? So you have to use a file to load that, and then you can establish a connection between the database, and then you can start reading your other variables from DB. So now for that also what we need a database input component which is going to read from the context table. So what component we have to use? TDB input. And always you have to read from metadata. So instead of typing manually, you can go and extract. So this table is available. Is this table available in So we want to have this table. I'm creating in our generic schema also so that we can extract this table information from metadata. We can simply use that in wherever we want in a job. Okay, so we have this table. So I'm going to extract the table, retrieve schema. So context I'm reading. So two variables, we two columns we have. That's it. And I'm going to use the existing connection. So whatever it is going to connect, it will have that table. So all the four instance we have that table. So I'm going to read the from repository. Metadata context table. Now I'm going to make it built in. We don't need it. So context any schema, it will get that table key and value. So whatever it is going to connect, it will get that value. So we want to use DB. After connection related components are established only we are able to get. So what we have to do, we have to give the answer job okay, and then again you have to use the context load. So without DB connections, you cannot connect to the database and you cannot read the table, right? So we need to have this flow first, and it should establish the connection related to that database. Then you are able to read the context variables from the tables, context table with respect to different environments. So whatever environment you are going to run. So now it is established and it is going to dump the values, load the values. Okay, so now I'm going to run again. I'll drop these tables. I'll drop this table. We have a drop statement here, right? Okay, I'm going to delete for each and every environment because we are reading from file from table context. So we have to drop and table is creating and it is loading from that table or not. We are going to see. Okay, same way for others also. I just removed for dev, right? So I'll show you. You can practice for other environment same way. So I'm going to select this dev. So dev, we don't have a table now. So the file path which we are reading from table. So it will read from the table and then it will pass to the context file. What is that candidate file? Whatever you are reading, right? It is loaded from table. We don't have that file path, candidates file path in our context files. So we removed everywhere in the context file. Only we have okay, only have DB related connections only. So file path we are going to read from the context file. So I'm going to select dev and I'm going to run this. Done, right? So it is established and we have only one variable in context table. So file path alone it is able to read and it is able to pass to that variable to the value to the context file, and it is created the table. So we can go and see in the dev environment, table is created again. To refresh, see, this is how we are going to read the context variables from uh, database. So database are any cloud related like Snowflake or Mongo. So whatever you, how they are going to keep their in context variables, right? You can maintain in tables each and every environment, or you can maintain in a files. So if you are maintaining in table also, to make sure before reading from that table, what we have to do, we have to establish a connection to that database. For that purpose, you have to maintain one property like whatever parameter file. So this is going to have only DB connection details. So we, each and every environment related, and other variables whatever you are going to use in a project level, all the variables and all you are going to keep in tables. So you can read from the table and you can start use of this. So this way you can avoid the hard coding in your studio level, passing the values whatever. So everything will be outside of your Talend code. So it will be there in a file or database. This is how they are going to maintain in real time. This flow, right? These four flow, whatever these three or four. So these three they are going to have in a one joblet, one common joblet. So that is going to called by each and every job, so that all the context variables are getting loaded into your job. So this part, the first part you are seeing, right? So total 7 components you are seeing. This setup is going to be there in your joblet. So all the this will called by joblet. They'll just call that joblet, and other flows are as it is whatever you are doing transformation whatever. But this is common for any developer, where whatever job he is going to create newly, this setup is going to be used by the joblet. There is a common joblet means it's going to have which is a reusable components. This is a reusable component, right? This entire part whatever we are reading from file to load context, and whatever we are loading context from table, this part is going to common for everyone. So if Sai is using, he need to go and insert he don't touch the DB related file anything. This is going to be a one time. This is done by one time. So the connection of database and all, and whatever he wants to create a new variable, he go to the context table and he'll start add whatever variables he want to add to the table. He just simply add here name. So for example, I want to add a name. So name I'm going to add Sai. Okay, so this is the variable he wants to add. So you can just add and apply. So when you are running the job, so name should be defined. Name variable should be there in your job. So for example, here we don't have a name variable. So I'm going to add that. So for this job, I just want to print my name also. So what I'm going to do, I'll add a name variable. Whatever you have provided in table or whatever you are going to provide here, same should be there in the context table or context file. So right now I have provided a name and I have entered that entry in context table. So name, so same like same case I have followed in context job level and table level. So I want to print this what is the value of the name in Java component, just to just for my sake, I just want for this job to print the Java name at the completing of main process. So I'm just going to use a tjava component and I just want to print that name value. So what is the name value? So here I'm going to use printing statement. So I can say name. Okay, just I'm printing at the end. I want to print who developed this job. So the value of the name we are going to receive from table. So I'm going to run this and we'll see it is able to read from the table that name variable or not. So now you can see, right, Sai value we get from the table. So this is how you are going to use a context variables and the key as a key and value. So you can have a number of variables, whatever they want, project level or whatever job level, all the variables we are going to add into the context table, or you can add into the context file so that you will get loaded. So you can do, you can same, you can try if you want to use a name here. Generally we are trying for DB connection, but still you want to try Naveen. So just I'm adding Naveen and I'm going to remove entry from here because we don't want. So you can maintain. So now I'm going to run this job again. So we are going to get, I have saved this, right? So you are going to get the value of name from context file. So only variables we have to create in a studio level. All the variable related values we are going to get from the outside. It may be file or it may be database table. So that is there, depends on project, depends on their convenient. They're going to use the context in table or file. Okay, now you are getting Naveen. So we read from file. Okay, this is how we are going to see in a your real time. So they'll maintain a file or a table, anyone they're going to use. But connecting database, we need a properties of connection related and all, right? So obviously they'll have one set config file, so which is going to be stored in environment variable somewhere. They'll store this path of the file and they'll get that connection details, and after that all variables you are going to create in a table so that you can use read from the table and you can use in your job. So I'm going to stop here. I think we are almost done, right? So one minor concept which is not really using by currently no one is using that. Still, I can I'll go and discuss about that context related. But real time, this is how they're going to maintain. So one concept of context related, the minor which is not using at all nowadays, but still we can go ahead and discuss about it. After that, I'll start project level setting of how the stats and logs and flow meter, those things. Tomorrow will continue. So mostly, I think Tirupati said 9th. Maybe I'm planning to close by Friday, next Friday. Okay. So we have a few more things to cover. If I'm able to, possible to cover those things before Wednesday, we are good. Otherwise, maybe it will go on next Friday. Okay. So just info for you guys. Okay. Any other questions? I'm going to stop